Number 10 is the raw cashew, which you have never actually eaten. Every cashew sold as raw has been steamed or roasted before it reaches a shelf. The nut grows inside a shell lined with anacardic acid and urushiol, the same compound that makes poison ivy unbearable. Handling the shells raises blisters. The smoke from burning them can swell an airway shut, and the oil is industrial enough that it ends up in brake linings and marine paint. Shelling is still done by hand across India and Vietnam, where workers wrap their fingers or coat them in ash because the burns accumulate and never quite fade. The safe procedure is to roast the shell first to drive the oil off, crack it, then roast the kernel again. Nobody worked that out from the nut. They worked it out from the tree, which is cousin to poison ivy, sumac, and mango, and everyone handling mango skin already knew. Number 9 is the green potato, which is a nightshade and behaves like one. Potatoes make two glycoalkaloids, solanine and shaconine, concentrated in the skin, the eyes, and the sprouts. Light drives production up. The green itself is just chlorophyll and completely harmless. It is a marker, showing you where the poison has been building. A bad potato tastes bitter, then burns the throat, then brings vomiting, headaches, hallucinations, and in the worst cases, coma. Cooking does not help. Solanine survives boiling, frying, and baking, so the only fix is mechanical. Cut deep, remove every green patch and sprout, and store the sack in the dark. In 1979, 78 boys at a South London school ate potatoes left in storage over the summer holidays. 17 were hospitalized within hours, several of them comatose. All of them recovered, which is why anyone remembers the case at all. Number 8 is sanakji, a small Korean octopus served in pieces while the pieces are still moving. That is not a trick of freshness. 2/3 of an octopus's neurons sit in its arms rather than its head, so a severed arm goes on responding to salt and touch for the better part of an hour. The suckers keep working too. They will grip a throat on the way down and hold, and roughly 6 people a year choke to death in South Korea doing exactly that, almost always after drinking. The procedure is genuinely simple. Cut the arms small, dress them in sesame oil so the suckers can't seal, and chew everything thoroughly before you swallow. In 2010, a Seoul man was convicted of murdering his girlfriend and staging it as a sanakji choking for the insurance. The Supreme Court overturned it in 2013. The dish was plausible enough to be a defense. Number 7 is the red kidney bean, sitting in a cupboard in most of our kitchens. Raw, it contains a lectin called phytohemagglutinin, and it contains an enormous amount of it. 4 beans is enough. 4 raw beans produce violent vomiting within about 3 hours, followed by cramps people mistake for ordinary food poisoning, which is technically what it is. The fix is simple. A hard rolling boil for 10 minutes destroys the lectin completely, but gentle heat does the opposite. Holding beans at 80 degrees Celsius, the temperature inside a slow cooker set to low makes them about 5 times more toxic than eating them raw. This is the only food here where being careful is the dangerous option. British doctors spent most of the 1970s working that out from outbreaks in student kitchens where the beans had been soaked overnight and simmered gently all day, exactly as a careful person would. Number 6 is casu marzu, a Sardinian sheep's milk cheese made by leaving a wheel outside and letting a fly lay eggs in IT. The larvae hatch by the thousand, eat their way through and break the fats down into something soft and ammoniac that people describe as genuinely delicious. It is served while they are still alive. That is not showmanship, it's the safety check. Dead larvae mean the cheese has gone properly rotten. But the larvae are also the hazard. Piophila casei survives stomach acid, attaches to the intestinal wall, and causes a condition called enteric miasis. They also jump. A disturbed larva can launch itself 15 centimeters, which is why eaters are told to cover the plate or wear eye protection. Selling it has been illegal under European hygiene law for 2 decades, and it has been on the Sardinian black market for all 20 of those years. No shepherd invented this on purpose. Somebody found a ruined wheel and was hungry enough to taste it. Number 5 is hakarl, which exists because Iceland had a shark problem. The Greenland shark is one of the longest-lived vertebrates known, with individuals dated past 250 years. It also has no kidneys and no urinary tract. It processes waste through its flesh, which stays saturated with urea, and trimethylamine oxide for the animal's entire life. Eating it fresh causes what Icelanders call shark drunkenness, staggering, vomiting, hallucinations, occasionally death. The meat is chemically closer to a cleaning product than to a fish. But 9th century Iceland could not afford to waste a 2-ton animal, so the shark is gutted, buried in gravel under heavy stones for 6 to 12 weeks while its own fluids press out, then hung in an open shed for 4 more months. Half a year of deliberate arat. It comes out smelling of ammonia, and it is still served at midwinter in cubes with a shot of spirits to follow. Somebody had to be the person who checked whether it was ready. Number 4 is the elderberry, yes, sold as syrup, wine, and immune supplement in every health food shop in the West. Almost every part of the plant, leaves, stems, bark, roots, and the unripe berries contains sambunagrin, a cyanogenic glycoside. The digestive system converts it into hydrogen cyanide. Heat destroys it, which is why the syrup is fine and the raw fruit is not. But nothing about the plant makes the distinction obvious. In 1983, at a retreat in Monterey County, California, somebody pressed juice from whole elderberry clusters with the leaves and stems still attached. 8 people drank it. Within 15 minutes, the first of them was on the ground, and one was airlifted out. The nausea, dizziness, and numbness came on so fast that responders initially assumed a deliberate poisoning. That is the pattern with elderberry. It is never the fruit that gets people, it's the part of the plant nobody thought to remove. Number 3 is ackee, the national fruit of Jamaica and half of its national dish. It grows inside a pod, and it is perfectly safe, but only after the pod splits open on the tree by itself. A closed pod can hold over 100 times more hypoglycin A than an open one. Hypoglycin A does not attack the nervous system. It blocks the body's ability to burn fat for energy. So when blood sugar falls, there is nothing underneath it, and it keeps falling. The result is Jamaican vomiting sickness. Violent vomiting, then several hours where the person appears to recover, then seizures, coma, and blood glucose near 0. Children are hit hardest because they store less glycogen. Doctors were describing the illness in Jamaican hospitals in the 1870s, 60 years before anyone identified the compound. The rule that prevents all of it is one sentence: don't pick it, let it open, and the United States still banned imports for 27 years because one sentence is hard to guarantee across an ocean. Number 2 is fugu, which carries the most famous poison in food. Tetrodotoxin is roughly 1,200 times more lethal than cyanide by weight. One pufferfish holds enough of it, concentrated in the liver and ovaries, to kill about 30 adults. There is no antidote. There never has been, but the real cruelty is the mechanism. It blocks the sodium channels nerves use to fire, so muscles shut down from the outside in, lips, tongue, fingers, limbs, and finally the diaphragm. It does not cross into the brain. Victims suffocate fully conscious, aware of the room, unable to signal that they are still there. In 1975, one of Japan's most celebrated kabuki actors ordered 4 fugu livers in Kyoto, told the chef he would take responsibility, and was dead within 8 hours. Japan's response was paperwork. A license takes 2 to 3 years of apprenticeship and an exam about a third of candidates pass, and deaths have fallen to low single figures a year. Nearly all of them people who cooked their own catch. Which leaves number 1. And it isn't a delicacy. Nobody eats cassava for the thrill. It is a root crop that feeds around 800 million people, and it has killed more of us than everything else on this list combined. The bitter varieties are the useful ones, hardy, drought-resistant, willing to grow in exhausted soil, and they carry linamarin through the whole root. Crushed, it releases hydrogen cyanide. But boiling is not enough. The root has to be peeled, grated, soaked, or fermented in water for 3 to 5 days. Pressed, then dried, or roasted. Miss a step, and the cyanide stays where it is. Chronic low doses cause konzo, an irreversible paralysis of both legs that arrives over a few days and never lifts. The name comes from a Yaka word meaning tied legs. Outbreaks track drought because when the harvest fails and people are hungry, the 3-day soak becomes a 1-day soak. In Mozambique in 1981, more than 1,000 people were paralyzed in a matter of months. The safest version of the plant is the one that grows worst.